thing that you build just inherently affects millions of people.
Well, this is an interesting perspective. You, of course, are famous for implementing this Ethereum protocol. But before we ever get to computer protocols, there are sort of legal and structural protocols that we impose upon ourselves in the form of government and markets that are subordinate to government. And there's a weird way in which you may start a process by which you write down rules for how a society should function. But once those rules are written down, you may discover all sorts of unintended properties of that rule set. And there's a real question, can we actually unhook ourselves from the killer app that is capitalism or American democracy? And if we start to realize that that app is running out of control?
I guess for kind of myself as a kind of social technologist, and I definitely don't think that we should be kind of overturning entire countries with new mechanisms overnight. I think...
and I wasn't insinuating...
Oh, definitely. I think like that's... figuring out how to kind of solve grand problems of humanity is a long-term goal, but I mean, short-term goals are there's little things that we can make better, right? So, and this is actually part of why I find cryptocurrency and blockchains interesting, because they are, in a lot of ways, this ideal ground for economic experimentation of different types, right? So, like, to give one concrete example, so one of the ideas that Glenn Weil and myself have come up with and are pushing forward is something called quadratic funding. And the way that quadratic funding works is roughly this, right? So you have a central kind of pool of funding, and you could imagine this coming from a government, you could imagine this coming from wealthy donors, you could imagine it just kind of being put together by some like crypto economic protocol. It could come from anywhere. And then you allow people to like basically set up projects, and you let people say, I have a project, here is something that I'm doing, and if you like this, then you can donate to me. And you let people donate to projects. And then the core of the mechanism is basically that if there's a project that multiple people donate to, so there's some project, you donate to it, and someone else donates to it as well, then your donation doesn't just benefit you, it also benefits the other person. And the other person's donation doesn't just benefit them, it also benefits you. And so to kind of counteract that kind of market failure, the mechanism basically says, well, we're going to multiply the effect of your donation by 2 and multiply the effect of the other person's donation by 2. And so now both of your incentives are kind of aligned with the whole. And you extend this mechanism so instead of supporting 2 people, it supports an arbitrary number of people, and you kind of calculate these subsidies across all possible pairs of people. And what you get is this formula that basically says you let people donate to different projects, you look at how many people donated and how much money you've donated, and based on this, from the central pool of funding, you give this extra subsidy. And so it basically is like a market for public goods, right? And in the Ethereum ecosystem, there's something called Gitcoin grants, where we've basically started like trying to use this mechanism to fund public goods inside the Ethereum ecosystem, right? So this could be implementations of the Ethereum protocol, it could be scaling solutions, it could be wallets, it could be educational resources. And we've had a kind of test round recently with about kind of $200,000 in this central matching pool, and it recently finished. I mean, you can go to gitcoin.co/grants to see the results. And we got contributions from hundreds of people, and the results it gave were actually pretty reasonable. So
fantastic.
Yeah, and so I think Ethereum could have a lot of value in just being a test net bed for decentralized governance and decentralized public good funding infrastructure of this kind.